I'm going to break with chronology a little and begin our exploration of Rome with images from Pompeii, which means images from the early empire period. Then I'll backtrack and compare Republican culture and art to the early empire. The video clip offers a quick introduction to the eruption of Vesuvius. If you want to learn more about this disaster, the entire video is up on Moodle. When I showed you the famous mask and coffin on King Tut, I mentioned that he was only a minor teenage pharaoh and that his temple probably only yielded what the Egyptians would consider a second-class haul. And still, the loot boggles our mind. The same is almost certainly true of Pompeii and its relationship to artifacts lost from ancient Rome. This city was on the outskirts of Rome. It had prominent and wealthy citizens, but really it was just a suburb. What makes the finds at Pompeii so incredible is the window they open to ordinary Roman life. Roman families, Roman homes, and the world revealed by the best preserved Roman paintings that ironically survived because they were buried in ash for almost 1,000 years until they were unearthed in the 1800s. By the way, you'll need to know that these archaeological discoveries came in the 18th century. Later, you'll learn about how the works unearthed in Pompeii helped generate a neoclassical revival in European art. Okay, I couldn't resist throwing this one in. My husband and I visited Pompeii in May of 2013. We also climbed to the top of Mount Vesuvius, which, fortunately for me, maybe not for you, refrained from erupting. Put it on your list. I usually try to avoid hyper-busy slides, but I thought that all these arrows and diagrams might actually prove helpful. The College Board plan of the House of the Vetti does not include labels, so you need to learn this stuff, okay? As always with architecture, I like to use videos to give a more complete picture. So let's take a visual tour of the House of the Vetti. Here's the plan for the House of the Vetti. This is the cheat sheet version with labels. Again, do not count on labels for the exam. So, what room that you just saw in a typical Roman house is missing from the House of the Vetti? There's no tablinum, no office where the patrons would meet with clients. I looked hard, but I didn't see a clear explanation or even a theory about this. Let's see if we might be able to come up with one. What do we know about the Vetti brothers? From plaques on the door, we know they were merchants, probably wine merchants. Here is a fresco from the House of Vetti which shows Cupids making wine. We also know that they were successful freedmen, that is, former slaves who'd managed to get rich. This entryway fresco, not included with the College Board material, shows the god Priapus, god of fertility, weighing his rather prominent attributes with money bags. Subtle it isn't. Actually, the god Priapus decorated the entryway to many Roman houses. He was thought to bring fertility and good luck. Another less than subtle hint of their wealth were the two strong boxes placed prominently in the large atrium so that visitors would be sure to notice them. In other words, the Vetti brothers were social climbers. Roman society and Roman citizenship had become much more open to talent, but it is still unlikely that this duo, however wealthy, would be patrons to numerous clients. Stay tuned for my discussion of dignitas. But clearly they decorated their homes to impress. I'm pretty sure that you'll only need to learn about the fourth style, or only need to be able to identify the fourth style of Pompeian painting, because it's the one that shows up in the House of the Vetti's famous Ixion room, a required image. But since fourth style was a mixture of earlier styles, let's go through the first three very quickly. First style, as you can see here, used paint to imitate marble. Second style took illusionism a step further. It used architectural features and landscapes to create an illusion of depth in space. We'll talk more about perspective when we get to the Renaissance, when it's rediscovered. The third style, there we go. The third style moved away from illusionism. These are much flatter paintings with oddly thin and artificial architectural details. You may recall from your reading that Vitruvius hated this style. He found it much too fanciful. You'll see I've blown up one detail just to give you a better sense of how the style worked. So, okay, now we arrive at the Ixion room of the House of the Vetti, which is a required College Board image. We don't know for certain what the room was used for, but the most common guess seems to be that it was a triclinium or dining room. Clearly, it was a place where the Vetti brothers entertained and a place where they showed off their wealth and taste. In this room, all of the styles come together. We see faux or fake marble blocks along the base of the walls, like the first style. These frame the naturalistic and architectural scenes, similar to the second style, with their illusion of depth. Yet these are combined with large, flat planes of color and exaggeratedly slender architectural features. Remember, we saw that in the third style. What's the word for taking a bit of everything from column A, B, and C? Eclectic, and it's a good art history vocabulary word. So basically, the paintings in the Ixion room centered on two themes. One was romantic encounters between gods and mortals, often rather graphically displayed. The College Board's image set does not include any of these rather graphic paintings. It does, however, include other mythological scenes depicting tales from the mythology of the Greek city of Thebes. Remember that these were painted in early Roman Empire. As you learned in your reading, Emperor Augustus deliberately tried to evoke classical Greece and the age of Pericles, and he set the style for this period. So Greek stories were fashionable, although the gods apparently used their Roman names. So let's take a closer look at two of the paintings that show up in the College Board image of the Ixion room. I do not, alas, have time to retell the complex mythology that the Vetti brothers' guests would have known thoroughly. If you enjoy Greek and Roman myths, and I know that some of you do, here's a good website that goes through the very tangled Theban mythology. It's up on Moodle. I'll give you a very abridged version for this painting. Pentheus, in the center, opposed the cult of Dionysus, or Bacchus, to give his Roman name. And this cult was very popular in his home city of Thebes, where Dionysus grew up. Therefore, Pentheus was torn to pieces by women who were enthusiastic participants in the cult. Pentheus's mother was actually one of the women who was joining in this particular merriment. In her madness and the frenzy of a Bacchic rite, she did not even recognize her own son. Altogether, charming dinner table viewing. This one would be a little less likely to spoil my appetite at any rate. Hercules was the son of Jupiter, remember that's Zeus, and a mortal woman. He was born in Thebes also. Juno, that's Hera, Jupiter's wife, was jealous of this child, so she put serpents into Hercules' cradle. As you see here, Hercules succeeded in overpowering the serpents. Note that this painting includes architectural features that give it a sense of depth, and framing that recalls earlier wall painting styles. We've already talked about the Alexander mosaic, but I should note now that it was found in a house in Pompeii. Remember, it's thought to have been a copy of an earlier Greek wall painting. Since this is the only mosaic in this unit, I really should move on. But on the same trip that took me to Pompeii, I visited a huge Roman villa in Sicily that fortunately got buried in a mudslide, fortunately, because it had room after room of spectacular mosaics that had been preserved under the mud. And I can't resist sharing some of these images because I actually think mosaic art is one of the greatest elements of Roman art. I am, again, getting a little out of sequence because this villa was from the 4th century AD at the very end of the Roman Empire. So, guess which mosaics from the villa tend to show up on all the t-shirts? And here's my husband's photo of the entire panel, which, no surprise, was actually in an exercise room, almost certainly used only by men. Here's a hunting scene, and here's another hunting scene. And finally, this is one of the most famous paintings from Pompeii. It's on our list, even though it's not on the College Board's. The scroll and stylus that the two are carrying were symbols of literacy. Probably, like the Ixion room, the painting was intended to convey a higher social status than this couple had actually achieved. The house the painting was found in was attached to a bakery. That was probably their profession. We included this work not only because it's famous, but because Ms. Jacobs and I both find the painting so evocative. These were real people, and chances are their fate was a tragic one.